can see we've got a good list of attendees now. So hi everybody and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is in the world you're joining us from, and welcome to our webinar today on food traceability. I'm going to be having a little discussion on specifically F&B companies and inventory control, how we can help manage it, what are the sort of general pain points, and how Enterpryze specifically can help with it. As we go through, we are going to have a live portion of the demonstration, and we'll have some time at the end for a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to hold them onto the end, or if you do want to just pop them in the chat as we're going, that's fine, and I can get to them at the end. So just to start with a little bit about us, for those of you who don't know, we are Enterpryze, an ERP software designed specifically for SMEs. So slightly easier to run than some of the bigger ones, more manageable, and in a nice web browser as well. And the aim is just to provide as many tools to make managing your business as easy as possible, and many different facets of the business as well. So we're looking either from sales up to purchase, that tracks through to accounting and inventory management, all packaged into one. And just a little bit further, Enterpryze ourselves, we're located across the globe in over 10 different countries now with 120 employees. And we've been going about this for quite some time now, 15 years, as you can see it there. And we've been working initially with SAP partners, which then has developed into the offering that it is what it is today. We're over to SMEs to help run the business. And we are present, actually, 10 locations is where we're located, but we have customers over 75 countries and a number of partners on top of that. So you can see we're quite global across the world and ever expanding. So on to the actual meat of today's call, food traceability. We're going to be taking a look, first of all, a little bit of information. So what is it? So today we're going to be looking at the ability to actually track and trace stocks that may be food items in real time. And especially when you're dealing with food items that can be perishable, that comes with some downsides, or things that are maybe a little bit more tricky to manage. Goods that are coming in, you'll often need to manage them by an initial lot or a batch. So things will have different expiry dates, and you need to be able to track that as they come through the system. If you have any issues, you need to be able to take that back to an initial manufacturer or an initial supplier. And this can get very messy when you're dealing with the same goods that come from different places and have different expiry dates. There are lots of special processes that we'll have along the way, and you've got to maintain elements like quality control, very important when you're selling on to customers, and those who do deal with this can know what a headache it can be to actually manage exchange rates along this. Defects and damages, these are all elements that you're going to want to prevent, and this is what a proper tracking system in an inventory can help you to manage and give you visibility on. Items can come in, you will edit and add the batches to these, and you can very simply run reports that will make a lot of that information visible to you at the click of a button, managing everything from the items themselves down to individual food expiry dates. So what are some of the pain points and what are some of the consequences that are a result of that? So monitoring expired or defective food items can often lead to sending these on to customers. This can lead to complaints and losses that things need to be returned, losses of revenue, and goods that are just expelled from the system rather than sold. And those product returns, as we get onto that, can become very complex because not only have you sold a batch, but you need to redistribute these batches back into your inventory. And you need a system that can help automate that and show visibility. You need to be able to see that maybe an item has gone out and come back in, and see all of those touch points along the way. No maintenance for spoilage. You need to be looking for visibility on your product expiry. Record processing that can be potentially inefficient leads to human errors, missing values here and there. I know a lot of you may have experienced this before when you're dealing with reporting on things like Excel, or some things where maybe you may have an accounting system that's not linked to an inventory. This can all lead to issues with human error when you're comparing two sides against another. And then finally, poor data tracking, giving you limited awareness of your quality events. So it's not all doom and gloom. As well as having the pain points, we're also looking at ways that we can alleviate them. And this, as I get into the demo today, I'm hopefully going to show you how some of this can be made simple and clear. So from the top, again, monitoring your defective goods, having batches with the expiry reporting is going to give you that visibility, allow you to see the tracing of your items from step one, bringing it in to the final step of selling it on to customers. The product returns, again, on the traceability, this is sort of a bit of a two-in-one, allowing you to see both of those. And it also leads to the maintenance that you have for spoilage. Those reports will get on complexity, and you'll be able to run specific reports for things like batch expiry dates that give you visibility on what is going to go out of date when, even before it happens. So you can know by date X or date Y how much of your inventory and which specific batches should be moved out or focused on selling. The inefficient record processes is down to the individual tagging. If you are bringing these in for a single item or a single batch, it's going to be remembered. And anytime that item is dealt with in the system, you're going to be able to see visibility of it. And gone will be the days of having to track these manually on different sheets. And then finally, the robust quality reporting. It's something that I'll get into and show you in this full demo with a full suite of reports that you would have available to you and how it can make your life easier. Okay, so that should give us a little bit of the overall look, and I'm going to get now into the actual demonstration of things. This is just a little bit, and we can get into it because I think that's enough of the overall talking. It's time for me to actually show you how this can work. So what I'll just do temporarily is give me a moment to stop my screen on the demo here, and I'm just going to reshare to my Enterpryze homepage for the demo portion. Okay, this should just be loading in now, and you should see the swap over. So we've talked a little bit overall about how difficult it can be to manage fresh produce and tracking things like expiry and looking the reporting all the way through. And that's what I want to give you a rundown today. I'm going to give you a demonstration as if we were a user of Enterpryze creating an item and taking purchases and then the sales between our customers and suppliers. So let's come and start here in the items module. We're going to specify on this today, and I'm actually going to add a brand new item. So we're going to just see this from scratch, from ground zero of item creation. So I'll just give this any old item code. This doesn't matter for now, and a description. We'll say apples crate, and we can put this into an item group. Or I can just leave this blank for now. What I'll do is just put a quick price on there, and that's all we need. Singapore dollar. Let's say 25, 15. And the very important thing I need to do up here is the use batch numbers tick box. So this is going to take our item from just being a regular inventory item to requiring tracking of batch numbers. So now anytime we do any dealing with this item, be it incoming or outgoing, the system is going to know that this uses batch numbers, and it will prompt us for selection or creation of them. So that's a very simple item creation. We don't need to go into too much more at the moment. I'm going to give that a save, and we can just start transacting. The first thing that I might want to do when I am raising my inventories of this is do a goods adjust in. This can be very helpful to do before you create your first sale or purchase, because you may have existing stock and you need to raise your inventory to match that to start with. So let's create just a goods adjustment, a new goods receipt. And I'll just do this simply for the single item that we just made. I'll look for the apple crates. And let's just bring in a quantity of 100 into here. I will give these a value as well of 15 Singapore dollars. You could do this for more, but we're going to keep this simple. What you may notice is now that I have added the items, we have a new box here which asks me to edit the batch numbers. Now this is specific because I have enabled the batch availability on this item. This would not be here unless that tick box was ticked, but the system now knows we need to assign some batch numbers before we save this, and actually would not allow me to save this without doing this step first. So edit the batch numbers. We can see at the top here for this item, we have 0 out of 100 items. That's the 100 that I added to this goods receipt. And I can add a new batch to here. So let's give this a batch number, BAT001, for example, or maybe let's just give this a slightly higher number. And I could do a quantity of 100, but why don't I bring this in 2 different batches? So we'll do a 50-50, let's say first batch, and I'll give this an expiry date as well. The reason I'll do 2 batches is, let's say we have 2 different expiry dates on here. So we have 50 fulfilled. I'll create the second batch now, BAT001112, and again a quantity of 50, second batch, and finally I'll change the expiry date to 1 week later than our current one. So tapping out of that, we now see we have fulfilled the full 100. So we're doing a goods receipt and we're just raising our inventory to start with, and we've started by assigning a batch. Let's give that a save. The document has been added and we immediately have inventory now. The inventory has a value. If I were to come in to view the journal, I could drill in here, and let's just quickly do that. We're not going to take a deep dive into the accounting. We're focusing on inventory today, but this is just to show you that the accounting backend and the inventory are intrinsically linked. I have just created a transaction that has raised our inventory, and by doing that, we are adding value of stock into our system and into our chart of accounts. And Enterpryze is automatically tracking that for us. You can see we have a difference of a debit straight into our raw materials account and a credit out of our stock losses account over there. And as we move that on, as we do sales and purchases, that's all going to happen automatically too. Just worth mentioning, we'll come back to the actual dealing of inventory at this stage and take this a step further. We've done our goods receipt and we are now ready to make a sale. So let's come into the sales module now, and we'll start to build this up for the customer. I want to generate a new sales quote. Let's have a new customer who's interested in buying some of my apples. Let's go ahead and generate a new sales quote that I can maybe send out to them. Very simple. We can just select the customer. Here's one I saved earlier. Information will be populated automatically, like the contact, your bill to and ship to address. This is all stored against the business partner, including posting dates, payment terms. You can change the owner and salesperson if you'd like to. I'm just going to keep this simple. We'll focus on the goods, and I'll add some items to this and just search for our new apples that I just added previously. Apples crate, here we go. So we have 100 in stock. You can see that's great. That's exactly what I put in earlier with the goods receipt. Let's go ahead and try and sell 25 here to this customer. And I'll just add that to the document. We can review this before saving. If I come down, we can see the price has actually applied automatically. It knows the selling price because I defined that earlier. So that has saved. I could add elements such as discounts. Again, let's keep this straightforward. We do not need to do anything with batches at this stage. The quote is just a quote. We are not dealing with our inventory yet. We'll get onto that when we actually see inventory leave the system. I'll just save that, and it's very simple. I can send that off to my customer. The document has been added, and just as easy as that, we've created a quote. It's ready for sending. I could come into my actions and send it via email, or download it to my computer or print it directly. What we're interested in now is moving this forward. So we have these apples that we've created an item for, we've added a batch against them, and we've sent a quote to our customer. We want to actually do the selling now and perform a delivery. And in order to do so, we need to tell the system which of those batches we want to take the items from. And that's not going to happen until we actually see the items leave our inventory. And the quote will not do that. If I come on and skip the order stage, let's actually move on to an actual sales delivery document. We are performing a real delivery to our customer, and this will reduce the items from our inventory. And you can see we have this button back that we may recognize from before, the edit batch numbers button. And this just means we have to select our batch. This is gonna have to be selected if we want to move forward. I will not be able to save this if I don't do this. So let's go ahead, edit the batch numbers. So at the top, you can see the items. We have 0 fulfilled out of a possible 25. 25 items on this delivery. And down below, we can see the 2 batches that I actually created earlier, both with an available quantity of 50. And looking at these, I can see one of them has a closer upcoming expiry date. So I'm going to use this one. I'm going to pick directly from this batch, and I'm going to change the quantity to 25. And you can see this is now fulfilling all 25 of that first batch and none from the second, because this is the closer one to expiry, and I know that. So that's all I really need to do. This important document now is going to be added. We are going to see movement of stock as I saw it before. We will be able to send a confirmation email to our customer if we want to. I'll just say no for that, avoid some spam emails. But here the document has been added. We have an official delivery that has been sent out, and we have seen our goods move as well. So if I were to come into the item now, let's drill further in and take a look at anything that's changed. In the overview of the item, this is our apples crate. We can see the stock on hand is now 75. So we've gone from the 100 that we initially brought in down 25 to a remaining 75. And we've dealt with the batches at every step along the way. So that's all well and good. That shows just kind of how simple it is to set up your batches and manage them for individual items when you're dealing them with on documents. But what you want to see on from there is visibility on different batches, and that's where the reporting comes in. So if we come still in the stock module here over to the batch reporting, we'll have a look at what they do. We'll start here with the batch availability report, and all you're doing here is selecting an item code. We can leave this blank if we do it for everything or all items. I'm going to do it specific to the one that we saw before and to all warehouses. That's another point we haven't looked at so far, but multiple warehouses are fine to use in Enterpryze too. Let's give this item code a search, and we can see information about the batches. The batch availability report is just a very simple report that will tell you which batches are currently available, as in which batches have inventory in them. So we can see we have 2 batches. One has a quantity of 25 and one has a quantity of 50. And this matches up exactly with what we've done so far. And you can export this to Excel. You're going to see this for all of these reports. And whenever you see data like this and you wanted to do maybe more reporting on it, like calculations and sums on quantities, you can always pump this out to Excel. Next up is the batch expiry report, and this is a great one that you're going to be able to run by date. That's going to be able to show you all of the items that are set to expire by a certain date. It's an extremely useful report to run if you want to be able to see what you need to sell by a certain date. So this is a mandatory field this time, expiry date. Let's come into the calendar. And if I come further down, let's say maybe we'll set the 17th of May as the expiry date. I believe I had 18th as the second one. And we can set an item code and a warehouse. Let's go ahead and put our apples in here. And again, you could leave this one blank. You can leave the warehouse blank if you want to look at everything. The expiry date, though, is manual. You can see it has this star by it, which indicates that it's a manual field. Let's give that a search, and just like expected, we only have 1 batch show up in this stage. Why? Because the second batch had an expiry date of the 18th, and we're only running this one for the 17th. I'm only interested in seeing the goods that are expiring by the 17th, so we can only see 1 batch. And this gives me a very clear example of all the goods that I want to sell by this date. A great example maybe is we take off the single item, and I give this another search. We're now going to see all of the items that I currently have in the system, all of the batches that are expiring by this date. So this may help me to get a move on, pass this to my sales team, to be able to really focus on the goods that are going to expire before they do so. And like always, we can pump this out to Excel for easier manipulation. Next up, we have the batch traceability report. This is a great one that's going to tell you every single time we have either increased or decreased stock in relation to a batch within the system. So let's look specifically here at item code apples, and we're looking at a particular batch in this case. So you run this for a singular batch and you're looking at every single time. If you do want to specify supplier, you can do so. But if I run this for batch 1111, we're going to see every single time this particular batch has changed value. 50 in, 25 out, this is giving us complete visibility. You should be able to see that as you start to build up complexity, you may often have batches that are coming in with 1,000 goods inside, which may be sold at completely varying rates, which can get very, very complex very, very quickly. So this is a superb report that allows you to see every time that comes in and out with the codes of the items, the individual warehouse information, even the document type is going to tell you each time that's come in and out. You can see all the elements down in there. And the final one we have is the batch sales report. And this is going to give, again, an overview on batches. I'll just go ahead and select the same old one that we've been using before and the batch that we've just used on our sales side. And now this time we're going to be able to see visibility on all of the associated sales document with a specific batch. And this is very useful because it shows you the different stages a batch may have gone through. Because you may have items that go through a sales order, onto sales delivery, even onto sales invoice, pending payment. And there's a lot of different steps and a lot of tracking that you can do at each time, because there can often be days, maybe even weeks before these stages. And this report is perfect for allowing you to see the different dates that they sit at. So we're only looking at a singular one in this example. We only have the one batch, but this is the document that I put through before. We had a singular sales delivery associated with this batch, but you can see if we had an associated order, associated invoice, that would also show in here and give you the full picture and information. And as this starts to build up later, you'll get full tracking for individual batches as they go through. So in terms of batches, that's really going to show you as much as I want to demonstrate today. I don't want to add too much more complexity into this. I've spoken about so far how this links over to the finance areas, and it really makes things very seamless, because as we're dealing with inventory here, you've got your sales module and your purchasing module that goods are moving in and out via, and all of this is tying into your accounting. There's no need to keep these separate like a lot of systems do these days. It's all talking to one another, and it solves a lot of problems that you may have with double entries, which can lead invariably to mistakes. It's a natural part of human error. And then as we get deep into accounting, you're also looking at doing elements like reconciling, making your payments, and as you get on with those, you have integrated bank feeds, the ability to take payments by pay now. The whole idea is just making everything as seamless as possible. We're not going to go into all of those details today. If I were to, we'd probably be here all evening or all morning, and I don't want to keep everybody's time. But what we are going to do now is open the floor up to questions. So I'm going to stop the sharing of the demonstration and just swap back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to open the floor up. I think there may be a few ready for me already. So I'm going to start getting to those now. And while I do so, please feel free to drop in any additional questions and I'll get to them as we come. So first question there, will I be able to trace back the source or supplier of a food item in case there is a production error down the line? Yes, you absolutely can. This question actually came in about 10 minutes ago, and I think it has been answered already. But just in case, to reiterate, when I was showing you the reporting that shows you exactly where and when your batches or items came in, and at each point, you'd be able to see which supplier it came from, and which customer it was sent to, down to an individual batch. It's not just a macro level, you get that micro view. Another question on what's the difference between lots and serial numbers. So lots would be the kind of standard batches that we were talking about today, whereas serial numbers are for specific singular items. Batches or lots apply to a group of items that you come in. Let's say in this example, we brought in a group of crate of apples that all had the same batch. It's a large group of items that all got a single batch. A serialized number in the item hand would be one single item that's coming in and given a singular serial number rather than applied to a group. So a good example is dealing with electronics such as laptops. A singular laptop might need a singular serial number because you need to trace that specific item at all points. That's not what we're focusing on today. We're looking at the general batches and how that works. Another question, not sure if you already covered this, how to remove spoiled goods from inventory using Enterpryze. It's a great question. I didn't actually actively show that, but we did look at how to bring goods in. To bring them out, it's just the reverse of that. I showed you the goods adjustment in. There's an opposite document called the goods adjustment out. This would just be created against a losses. If you would like to, you can get a bit more complex. You could maybe move your spoiled goods to a separate warehouse and then write them off from there, and that gives you more traceability. But ultimately, you're just creating that goods adjustment out, and it's going to be considered a loss, and it will be tracked as so, and that's all linked up to your finances as you lose the inventory. Is there any difference between batch tracing for food and non-food items? There can be. It depends on the item in question. What you're generally dealing with is, do you want to apply the expiry date or not? And actually, this comes down to a mix. Even in food items, you may have non-perishable food items where you don't need to set an expiry date. So there can be a difference between food and non-food items, but to be honest, there can be a difference just in food items as well. It depends on your items, but the key difference would probably be, am I adding an expiry date or am I not? And you have the choice in Enterpryze, so you can choose to just not add an expiry date, and then your goods will be in batches without the expiry. Okay, that is all the current questions. Nothing else coming in right now, but I'm going to leave the floor open. In fact, we do have one now. Just a moment, it's come in the chat rather than the Q&A. So does your system able to do month-end stock counting, theoretical balance versus actual balance? Yeah, great question. And yes, it does. This is a very important feature whenever you're dealing with inventory. It's the ability to do stock take. And it's a great question because inevitably when you're dealing with inventory, you may have losses along the way, you may have damages, things may go missing. It's unfortunately an inevitable part. And if you never do this balancing, you may end up in a situation down the road where you have losses in your warehouse that haven't been tracked in your theoretical balance. And one day maybe you'll log in and check your stock and it's completely different. So we have a feature that allows you to do just that. It's the stock take. And it allows you to do a reconciliation between them. And you can actually run it on a tablet if you'd like to, or just download it to Excel. And then whoever's doing it can just go through the warehouse using the tablet and enter the values. And using this stock take, once you enter that information into Enterpryze, it will automatically do the goods adjusts in or out, depending on if it's positive or negative. It will do that for you automatically. You don't need to manually create those goods adjustments. All you need to do is enter the actual balance that you find. And you can do that as often as you want. So monthly is very common for a lot of warehouse users, bi-weekly, quarterly, it's as often as you want to run that. And another question here, do you have traceability system regarding food manufacturing for food safety purposes? We could potentially provide an element of that. If we're looking specifically for food safety, it may be pertinent to arrange sort of a more in-depth session with you at a later date, because with food safety, obviously you have certain guidelines that have to be met. But we do have a bill of materials feature that allows you to manufacture products into a finished product. So you can go from raw materials or base products in the system and automatically exchange those and the value of those into a finished product. And you have the documents and the traceability between those as well. And if you're dealing with batches too, that's all absolutely fine. So at a top level, yes, we absolutely can attest to that. If you want any more information on that sort of element, maybe just let us know in the chat and we can arrange maybe a more in-depth demonstration on that at a later date. Okay, that is all questions currently. I'll just leave things open for another couple minutes, give anybody who may have a eureka moment to pop anything in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap up from there. So let me know if there's anything else, and we'll end things otherwise.